What if one narrow stretch of water could control the entire global economy? Every single day, nearly 20% of the world's oil flows through a tiny, fragile passage known as the Strait of Hormuz. It's one of the most important choke points on Earth, and if it gets blocked, even for a few days, the consequences could be catastrophic. Oil prices would surge overnight, supply chains would collapse, and economies around the world could fall into crisis. So what if there was a way to bypass it completely? This is the story of a bold and almost unimaginable idea, a $200 billion canal that could reroute global energy trade and change the balance of power forever. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran and Oman, connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. At its narrowest point, it's only about 33 kilometers wide. But through this small gap passes an enormous amount of energy. Oil from Saudi Arabia, natural gas from Qatar, and exports from the UAE, Kuwait, and Iraq all depend on this route. Every single day, roughly 17 to 20 million barrels of oil travel through this narrow waterway. That's nearly 1/5 of the world's total oil supply. This means that the global economy is heavily dependent on a single, highly vulnerable location. And that vulnerability is the real problem. The Strait of Hormuz has long been a hotspot for geopolitical tension. Conflicts in the Middle East, naval confrontations, and threats of blockades have all made this route extremely risky. Even the possibility of disruption can send shockwaves through global markets. Insurance costs for tankers increase, military presence rises, and global uncertainty grows. Imagine a scenario where the strait is suddenly closed, tankers are unable to pass, oil supply drops instantly, prices skyrocket. Countries that depend on imported energy face immediate shortages, industries slow down, transportation costs surge, everyday goods become more expensive. The ripple effects would be felt everywhere, from factories to households. This is not just a theoretical risk. History has shown multiple moments where tensions in the region brought the world dangerously close to disruption. That's why governments, corporations, and energy experts have been searching for alternatives for decades. Pipelines have been built to bypass parts of the route. Strategic oil reserves have been created to handle emergencies. Naval forces patrol the region to ensure security. But none of these solutions completely eliminate the risk. And that's where the idea of a massive canal begins to take shape. The concept sounds simple. Instead of relying on a narrow natural passage controlled by geography and politics, build a new route entirely. A man-made canal that allows ships to bypass the Strait of Hormuz and travel safely to open waters. But when you look closer, this idea quickly transforms from simple to almost impossible. First, consider the sheer scale of construction. A canal capable of handling supertankers would need to be incredibly wide and deep. These ships are some of the largest moving structures ever built. Accommodating them requires precision engineering on a massive scale. We're talking about carving a path through hundreds of kilometers of land. This includes desert regions with extreme heat, rocky terrain that resists excavation, and possibly even mountainous areas that require tunneling or blasting. The amount of earth that would need to be removed is staggering. Billions of cubic meters of material would have to be excavated, transported, and managed. This alone could take years, if not decades. Then comes the challenge of water. Unlike the Panama or Suez Canal, which connect two existing bodies of water, a Hormuz bypass canal might need complex water management systems. Maintaining water levels, preventing evaporation in desert climates, and ensuring navigability would require advanced engineering solutions. Lock systems might be necessary if there are elevation differences. Pumping stations could be needed to maintain water flow. All of this adds to the complexity and cost. Speaking of cost, The estimated price tag of $200 billion is just a starting point. Large infrastructure projects often exceed their initial budgets due to unforeseen challenges. Delays, political issues, and technical difficulties could push the cost even higher. But money is not the only obstacle. The political landscape of the region is one of the most complex in the world. Any canal project would likely pass through or affect multiple countries. Each of these nations has its own interests, alliances, and concerns. Negotiating agreements for land use, security, and revenue sharing would be incredibly difficult. Some countries might fully support the project, seeing it as an opportunity for economic growth. Others might oppose it, fearing a loss of strategic importance or influence. And then there's the issue of security. A canal designed to bypass a dangerous choke point must itself be protected. This means ensuring that the new route is safe from sabotage, conflict, or political instability. Protecting hundreds of kilometers of infrastructure would require constant monitoring and possibly military involvement. Despite all these challenges, the idea continues to gain attention. Why? Because the potential benefits are enormous. A successful canal could provide a safer, more reliable route for global energy trade. It could reduce the world's dependence on a single choke point and lower the risk of sudden disruptions. This would bring stability to global markets and potentially reduce volatility in oil prices. It could also create new economic opportunities. Countries involved in the project could benefit from transit fees, increased trade, and infrastructure development. New ports, cities, and industries could emerge along the canal route. It could become a major hub of global commerce. But the impact goes beyond economics. This canal could reshape global geopolitics. Currently, the Strait of Hormuz gives certain countries significant strategic leverage. The ability to influence or threaten this route provides power on the global stage. If a new canal reduces that leverage, the balance of power could shift. New alliances might form. Old tensions could evolve. Countries that invest in or control the canal could gain new influence in global affairs. This is why the project is not just an engineering challenge, but a strategic decision. Some experts argue that instead of investing in such a massive project, the world should focus on reducing its dependence on oil altogether. Renewable energy, electric vehicles, and alternative fuels are already transforming the energy landscape. If global demand for oil decreases over time, the importance of routes like the Strait of Hormuz could diminish. In that case, a $200 billion canal might not be necessary. However, others point out that the transition to renewable energy will take decades. During this time, oil will remain a critical resource. Ensuring its safe and stable transportation will continue to be a priority. There have already been smaller steps toward bypassing the strait. For example, the UAE has built pipelines that transport oil directly to ports outside the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia has similar infrastructure. These pipelines reduce some reliance on the strait, but they cannot fully replace the capacity of maritime shipping. A canal, however, could handle massive volumes of traffic, including not just oil, but other goods as well. It could become a vital artery for global trade. But even with all its potential, the project remains uncertain. There are no confirmed plans, no construction timelines, and no agreements in place. It exists mainly as a concept, a possibility that highlights both the risks of the current system and the ambition of human engineering. And yet, history has shown that ideas like this can become reality. The Suez Canal was once considered impossible. So was the Panama Canal. Both projects faced enormous challenges, from disease to financial collapse to engineering difficulties. But they were eventually completed, and they transformed global trade forever. The question is whether the world is ready to take on another project of that scale. Because building a canal to bypass the Strait of Hormuz is not just about digging a path through land, it's about reshaping the global system that depends on it. It's about reducing vulnerability, increasing security, and creating new opportunities. But it's also about risk, cost, and uncertainty. And that's what makes this idea so fascinating. It sits at the intersection of engineering, economics, and geopolitics. It challenges us to think about the future of energy, the stability of global systems, and the limits of what humanity can achieve. So the next time you hear about rising oil prices or tensions in the Middle East, remember this. Somewhere, engineers, policymakers, and strategists are imagining a world where the Strait of Hormuz is no longer the center of global energy. A world where ships take a different path. A world where one of the most dangerous choke points on Earth is no longer a threat. And at the heart of that vision is a $200 billion idea. An idea that could change everything. But only if it can be built.